Hello there, I'm Dark Shades, and this channel is a relationship channel which talks about self-development and improving relationships, or how to understand relationships. It started off talking about politics and legislation, and then what I did is I put all of that stuff onto Black Bright News. So I now have a channel on Black Bright News called Black Bright News, which discusses legislation and all that kind of thing. I also have a series on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock about relationships. But because that's not primarily a relationship channel, I'm going to try to focus relationships on this channel to try and build up my subscribers. So if you pass by, please subscribe or like, just so I know whether or not what I'm talking about is what you want. So what I wanted to talk about now is testing. I mean, men have always been testing women, but women don't really test men. So not in a strategic way anyway, or in a focused way. They don't normally have a system like men do to test women. So I wanted to put some stuff out there based on my experience, based on the experiences of people I know, put it out there so you can be alert, because men aren't always what they say they are. You know, they can't help it. I don't think it's malicious. I think men are boys grown tall, and they tend to try to get whatever they can get away with and do whatever they can to get what they want. So because of that, it leaves us females open to being exploited, abused, because we tend to be quite trusting a lot of the time. And we tend to take men at face value. We don't understand why they would lie. We don't understand why they'd volunteer lies. We don't understand why they'd pretend, why they'll say things that they do not mean. But that is because they are testing. They're testing our levels of resilience. They're testing our boundaries. They're testing our tolerance. They're testing our morals. They're testing, they've got a list of things that they're testing when they test us. And if we don't know why they're testing us, we can actually throw in the towel and say, look, this guy, he's just taking the pee, he's taking advantage of me, I'm out, as they say in Dragon's Den. So, so I'm coming from that premise. I'm going to look at my notes down, as I usually do, so I don't miss anything. And I want to take you through this journey of how we can protect ourselves. We need to. We live in a time of technology. We live in a time where people can deceive you so easily. And we live in a time where people are so, I'm not going to say desperate, but they really want to believe. They really want to have faith in people. You know, technology is taken over our ability to discern, because you rely so much on images and messages and things that people can say really quickly in order to get what they want. Anyway, I've babbled on long enough. So men are always testing. They test our morals, values, compatibility, how interested we are in them, our sexual prowess, our level of intellect, how stable we are, our levels of tolerance, our resilience levels, and social etiquette. So it's time for women to test men. Women tend to judge men because they don't realize men are testing them, and they end up breaking up too soon because men have pushed the boundaries. Now, why I say we judge men, because if a man is, say for example, he stops calling you, or what they call ghosting, you're going to think, oh, I can't be bothered. He's unreliable. He's taking the pee. That's what you're going to think as a woman. When really, he's testing to see whether or not you're going to keep calling him, whether or not, to see whether or not you're going to be a bunny boiler, or how long it'll take for you to call him. And that's his motivation. And to see how you're going to respond, see how you're going to react. If you don't know that, you're going to say, oh, well, he's inconsiderate and he's unreliable. When he could well be, but it's about whether or not you can play them at their own games. A lot of times when men test, they lose out because they're so busy pushing boundaries. The woman gets peed off and then she jumps ship. And then that time he's like, oh, I've overstepped my boundaries. I didn't realise. I didn't really mean for it to take it that far. Why did she let me take it that far? If she didn't like it, why didn't she say something? Some women don't say anything. So when men are testing women, sometimes it's to their own detriment. And a woman will just go off and they end up trying to run down the woman. By that time, the woman's so peed off. Or she'll start saying, so why didn't you, why are you waiting until now to start upping the ante and being how I wanted you to be in the first place? But it's because he was so busy testing that, he lost any kind of sense of morality and what it is to be compassionate and kind to his woman. Anyway, when a man tests, you need to challenge him if you don't like anything he says or does. So don't let men get away with insults, not even the smallest insults. There's this way that they drop these little snidey comments just to see whether or not you're going to accept it. Don't accept even the snidiest comment if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Oh, what about those rolls of fat? Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, why do you wear that? Did anybody tell you that looks good on you? So you have to be careful and don't laugh it off because you're kind of giving them the barometer of how far they can go. And that's why people end up in abusive relationships. Also, it's the reason why men can up the ante. So if you say to a man, if you let a man get away with it, he's going to try, up it a little bit. And then next thing you know, he's being totally obnoxious. And it's because you've let him get away with it. So you don't. Nip it in the bud from the beginning. First sign of disrespect, nip it in the bud. Let him know when you feel uncomfortable about anything he says or does. Don't worry, it's early days. Don't worry how he's going to feel about it. You need to be concerned about how you feel about it. And if he's saying something that makes you feel uncomfortable, there's a reason. It could just be something, projecting from your past. But whatever it is, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, it's valid. Okay. And test them before they get an opportunity to test you so that you're in the driving seat. Because once they start taking the reins, you've lost control of your life and of your future, even if it's for just a period of time. Because once they start testing you, you're already in a situation that would be maybe difficult to get out of. So make sure that the person, before he tests you, that is actually somebody you want in your life. There's nothing wrong with the testing, but you need to know whether or not that person is compatible with you and meets your standards and meets what you want. So, literacy levels. With the advent of technology, you need to ascertain literacy levels if it's something that is important to you. It might not be important to you, but if it is, you need to ascertain them. Some people are looking for a partner to help them in business, to help them with a project that they're on. And they may think that the person, because they're articulate and intelligent, they might think, oh, their literacy levels are quite high. And they'll take it for granted. So, and you might be giving them a contract to go over and say, oh, look, can you look through that for me? And they don't know how to look it over. And they might take it to someone else. And it's not until, going back and forth that you realise that they have a literacy problem. And it's important because you could be wasting time sending written messages and wondering why you're not getting a response to those messages. And you're not getting a response to those messages because that person can't read those messages. So, or they have to take it to somebody else to read it for them. And so there's this long delay. So you have to kind of, if it is important to you, it might not be important to you. Doesn't really matter. But the fact of the matter is, if it is important to you, make sure you ascertain, you find out up front. And the best way to do that is that when you meet a person and they say to you, look, can I have your number? Don't give them your number. Give them your email address. If they say, oh, I don't have an email address. I mean, everybody's got an email address now. You need an email address to survive in this world now. They haven't got an email address. That's an alarm bell. They might say, I've got an email address, but I've forgotten the password. Another alarm bell, because you should be using your email address. People need email address for the most basic things. Even if it's to buy something, you need an email address. So you need to know that the person is, current, is actually with the times, can actually support you, and is getting with the program. So an email address will not only help you to find out whether or not he's technical, he has, he's modern, he's like, I'm looking for the word, like when people are savvy then. But he doesn't even have to be savvy, but he just needs to know, in this kind of world where everything is online, you need to know he's on top of things. You need to know that he can do what needs to be done if requested. Now, what an email will also do is that when he writes to you and says, oh, I am the person that you met so-and-so, you can be able to tell whether or not the email is long and he's telling you a little bit about how he felt about you, when he met you, and where he hopes this relationship will lead. Or you can find that he just sends a one-liner. Oh, this is whoever. I met you, just puts the name of the club or the name of the shop or the name of the library, and then he puts his telephone number. Then you're going to know, something not quite right there. Because if this man is trying to woo you, he's not going to put one-liners. It's like, because I'm a DJ, and there's such a difference between the people who send me their music and want me to play it. And you have some people, they just send the track, no title, no introduction about the song or when it was produced or when it was released. And I send it back and I say, can you please put the title in the subject and put the artist when this track was released? Most of the time I don't get a response back. So can I assume that they are unable to do that? I can only assume. But then you'll get another set of artists who will give me a bio, will give me the track, date it's released, and you get everything. And introduce themselves. This is so-and-so, or hello, Lady Lloyd. This is so-and-so. This is my latest music. I hope you can play it. Please let me have your feedback. There's some kind of dialogue going in there. So that is what I'm saying. Depending on your need, you will need to, emails are a way of determining how literate that person is. So that's a very, very good test. So you don't have to get uptight when they don't respond to your text. You might think, oh, they're ghosting me, or they are not interested. It could simply be that they cannot understand, especially if it's a long text or a complicated text. So that will get out of it. And also what I've said is look for inconsistencies in text messages. Does it make sense? Because, with this voice to text, where you can speak through the microphone and it translates into text. If somebody sends a message like that and it hasn't, and they've sent it without looking at it. Sometimes it, like I said, it could be speed, or it could simply be that they cannot read. So all I'm saying is that it might matter to some, it might not matter to others. All depends what you expect from your relationship. Yeah. Okay. So it may not, like I said, it may not matter, but it's important to know how best to communicate with him. And that's what it's about. It's not about judging anyone on whether or not how literate they are. It's about knowing how best to communicate with them. Because if you're talking to somebody who, by whatever misfortune or whatever reason, they might have just jumped out of school, or whatever reason they don't have high literacy skills, at least if you know that, you're not going to waste time sending them long texts. You'll send them voice notes. So it's more to do with knowing the best way to communicate with them, knowing how open they are about it, and knowing what you need. Like I said, if you're a business person and you need a person for that, then it might be important. If you just want a man for company and maybe to do things in your house, you need somebody more hands-on, somebody more masculine who's just going to do bolts and screws and that kind of stuff, like a handyman. Or whether you need, regardless, whatever it is, you'll know your needs, because literacy isn't always that important, especially if you've got somebody in the relationship who can balance that out and can help the partner through that. But if they cannot, and you need somebody who's going to, level you, then you're going to have to say, well, But all I'm saying, it's a good way to vet, or a good way to test. How single are they? That's another thing you need to test a man on. How many men say that they're single and they've just taken the wedding ring off and shoved it in their pocket? I told you about that man that came into my shop. He's been there chatting me up for weeks. And he never had a wedding ring on. And then one day he must have forgotten, because he came straight off shift. I won't even tell you what job he had, but he came off shift and he must have forgotten to take the ring off. And he comes in the shop brazen, chatting me up, and I said, "Are you married?" And he started fumbling with the bloody wedding ring. So, you need to ask them that up front. I just take it for granted when people talk to me that they're bloody single. It doesn't even occur to me that they might be chatting me up and they're married. I mean, that's naivety at its best. But now, that's the first thing I ask. Are you married? Or are you single at least? And when you say you're single, that doesn't mean anything much, because some men, they say they're single when they're temperate, when they've had an argument with their woman or their wife, and their wife is, they're kind of on a temporary breakup and they say they're single, or they're trying to get over a partner. They say they're single for that reason. And they're not really single because their mind isn't free. Their mind is with somebody else. So they're not technically single. So, what have I got here? Men say they're single when they haven't completely finished with someone, or have temporarily broken up with someone. They're separated, but want to reconcile. Most men, when they're married, they don't want to end the relationship, regardless of how bad it is. Unless it's abusive, really abusive, then they might. But most men who separate from their wives, it's normally the wife, or the wife who chooses to separate, and they end up clinging on to that woman. So they don't actually separate themselves emotionally from her. And then because of that, you end up with somebody who's not emotionally free, who at the back of their mind really wants to make it with the wife. But you'll do in the interim because they probably need some kind of solace. They need some comfort. So they take you on, but they're not technically single. So you need to ask them, you know, are you single? How long have you been single? And you can usually tell from their behavior how single they are. But then sometimes it doesn't really show up how single they are until you want them to commit. When you want them to commit, that's the time you see them backing off. And then you realize, oh, they're not really single at all. They're backing off. They're commitment phobes because they've been hurt from their last relationship. They don't want to take the risk. And so, therefore, they're not single really. So you need to kind of ask questions. When did you break up? You know, how do you feel about that? How long have you been with? How long were you married? How long were you with your partner? How do you feel about her? Ask all these questions. Be curious. We take too much for granted as women. We're too trusting. So, are they accessible? You know, have they got a thing where they say, oh, you can't call me? Mind you, I'm bad like that. I put my do not disturb on at around about 10:30 to 11. And so I guess a man could do that too. But how accessible are they? I mean, okay, let's talk about waking hours. How accessible are they? Can you call them more or less at whim? Can you be spontaneous with them? Do they return your calls relatively quickly? How are they when you call them off the cuff? How does it sound? You know, is there females or children in the background? I mean, yes, they could be family members. They could be cousins or relatives, but, you know, how do they respond to you? And do they respond to you differently at different times? I mean, one minute you call them and they're all chirpy and okay. Next minute you call it, they're a bit down and a bit moody and a bit, and you're kind of thinking, what's wrong with you? Oh, nothing, I've had a bad day. When really, it's because they're in a situation where they can't talk properly. So you need to kind of monitor that. Can you visit where they live? That's the one. A lot of men are saying nowadays, oh, I don't like where I live. It's not good enough. Or they'll say, I've got my partner and, well, my ex-partner, and they live downstairs and I'm not allowed to have female company. Or they'll say, oh, my landlord doesn't allow us to have visitors. Or they'll find a huge realm of excuses so that you cannot visit where they are. Now, okay, you can say, look, I don't care how your place looks. I just want to see where you live. Don't worry about me. I'm not going to judge you. I just want to see where you live and see what they say. If they're insistent, then you have to alarm bells. If they're insistent that you can't go there, because technically, if they're not involved with anyone, you should be able to go there regardless. I mean, no landlord is going to be there 24/7 to watch whether or not you're bringing somebody in. Those days are over. And even then, providing you're not staying overnight, so you're allowed visitors. So don't let them fob you off with an excuse. Find out where they live if you're that interested. You might not be interested to go to see where they live, but this is just to see whether or not how single they are. When you go there, do they still have a picture of their old exes or their girlfriends on the wall? Just saying. Very possible. Is there still, remnants of her clothes or bits of her around the house? Just saying. Some men are quite nostalgic. They're holding on to this woman, and anything that reminds him of her, they keep. And you have to live with that. Picture frames of him with his woman. Why would you want that? I don't want to go to a man's house and he's got pictures of his woman on the wall and talking about that's my ex. And you know what some of these men do? Some of these men, they have pictures of their ex, especially if their ex happen to be good looking. And they don't want to take down the picture just because the ex was good looking. And it's almost like they're saying, oh, this is what I can get. This is what you're competing with. Psst. If I go to a man's house and he's got a picture of a woman, I don't care how she looks, I'm not interested. So any man out there, you better take down those photographs of you and your exes because it's not on. Yeah, and how spontaneous and rigid can you be? Can you just say to them, look, I mean, providing, they're not in a 9-to-5 job or they don't have a job that's kind of working, long hours. I mean, it's difficult with self-employed people. But when you have a person who's kind of routine, you should be able to say to him, if he's single, look, let's go here. Call him up. I'd love to go here. Let's go here. And it shouldn't be a problem. If he's interested in you, number one, that's another thing. You can ascertain his level of interest to see what he is prepared to drop for you, what he's prepared to do for you. Is he prepared to just say, oh yeah, I'd love to spend some time with you. Just great spending time with you. Does he want to spend time with you? And the last one, well, there's plenty more, but I'm going to stop at this one. Otherwise it will go on forever. How financially sound is he? Now you might say, how the hell am I going to find out how financially sound is he? I'm not going to ask him for his bank statements. I'm not going to ask him how much he earns, but you don't have to. You can say to him, look, I need to borrow £100. I let you have it. Today's the 22nd. I get paid next week. I'll let you have it next week. If he says, oh, I haven't got it, you'll know that he doesn't have any savings. Can you book a holiday or a hotel at the end of the month? These are the dates. So you've got a little time. You're giving him a little time. He'll either say, yeah, sure. And then you can say, can you book this holiday? I'm not expecting you to pay it all. I'll pay my 50%, but I'll pay it to you on such and such. Or you tell that person when you're going to pay your 50%. So he's either going to say, yeah, sure, I've got this. Don't worry. You don't have to pay for your ticket. I'll pay for it. Or he's going to say, I've got to wait until I get paid. Or he's going to say, I can't afford to go on holiday. I've got too much bills and stuff to pay. Then you're going to know he's not in a financial situation. Now, he could trick you and he could go to his mates and say, boy, this girl, she's smart enough. She a test to see if me have money. I have no money, Let me borrow some money off you, please, brethren. I have to go buy this ticket for her. Otherwise, she not go want me. I mean, have a chance. So he could well do that. He could well go to his mates and say, look, ask for some money and do exactly what she wants. But that will be a one-off. And you're not going to only ask him once. You're going to find out in different ways how financially stable he is. You do not want somebody who is living from hand to mouth, because both of you should be able to support each other when things go down. It shouldn't be one way. So you don't want somebody who is either doesn't have anything at all or is living from hand to mouth, because it shows poor money management. Unless, of course, you're poor with money yourself. If you're asking for money because you're a poor money manager, that's not good. So I'm not suggesting that somebody who doesn't have any money and who doesn't have the wherewithal to pay it back and keep to their word to pay it back. I'm not talking about those type of people who are trying to say, take this money from a man, whether it's to use him or whether to find out. This is a genuine test. The same way they test us to see how much they can get out of us, to see how they can push our buttons and see what they can get away with. This is a similar test. to see whether or not they can come up with the goods. Because when you're putting your life on hold for a man, women are totally different. When a woman decides to commit to a man, she wants to make sure she's committing to the person she thinks he is, not a person who he pretends to be. And a lot of men, in order to get women, they pretend they're something else. They pretend that they're this big toponorist with a big job, goodness knows what. And when you months down the line, you'll find out it's a whole load of bull. And he was only telling you that to see how he could get you, how gullible you were, to see whether or not he could rope you in. Not good, but that's what they do. They're trained to do that because they feel as though it's the only way they can make the right choice about a woman. But it can backfire. So, morals. You also need to demonstrate his morals. I did say that was the last one, but morals is a big thing. You need to check, and that's easy to work out, to test his morals. How does he demonstrate consideration? You know, you'll be able to tell whether a man is considerate. Boof, just like that. You don't need to test. He'll give himself away. How often does he talk about getting something for nothing? Some men, they boast about what they've got for nothing. That will tell you something. What is his attitude towards work or working? How dependable is he? Does he say what he means and means what he says? Does he have integrity? How flexible is he? How cooperative? Is he one of these people who are rigid and me not do that, me not like them thing there? Nah, sir. You know, you get some people, they're so bloody rigid. They're not even willing to bend. Does he demonstrate empathy and compassion to others? You know, when he sees people on the street and you're walking with him and he sees people in some kind of dire straits or, you know, have some disability or illness, how does he react to them? Does he show any compassion? If they're trying to get through, will he step aside or will he try to go in front of them? How forgiving is he when he's talking about past disputes? So if he's talking about past relationships, has he still got that revenge? Has he still got resentment about past relationships? And nah, me nah forgive her, you know, me nah forgive her, you know what she do me? Nah, man, can't forgive her for that. Nah, sir, me I got hate her till she dead. That's how some people talk, you know. When she dead, me still I got hate her. But what she do me? Anyway, forgiveness. How forgiving are they? Forgiveness is important because they can't move on if they are resentful. They can't give you the love you deserve if they're resentful, if they're hanging on, because that goes back to being single. They're not single because their heart is still with somebody else. Their heart is still hurting over somebody else, what somebody else has done to them. What are their views on monogamy? Are they the type that says, you know, man can't be faithful? I don't believe that. A lot of people say men can't be faithful. I don't believe that. I believe they can. How generous is he? That can tell you a bit about how stingy. Does he go out and he doesn't buy anything? You know, like when you go to a social event, is he more likely not to buy anything? Not even himself a drink. He's waiting for somebody to come and offer him a drink. You get men like that, you know. So you have to watch that, and you can get men who would take out a woman, or even if they don't take her out, ask to meet her up somewhere, and they don't buy her a drink for the whole night. And yet they're standing up there with their drink. They'll go to the bar and get a drink for themselves. Come back and dance with the woman, you know, with the drink in their hand. And they don't even say, would you like a drink? Liberty. Is he a good sportsman? Can he take a joke? How light-hearted? How sensitive? I mean, sometimes a lot of this has got to do with past relationships, past experiences. But like I said, that's a lot to do with whether or not he's really single. If he's still hurting, He's not going to be as joking. He's not going to be as light-hearted. He's going to be sensitive. He's going to be mistrustful. You know, he's going to be skeptical. So, and can he show humility in, you know, in certain situations? How does he react when he's approached by people? You know, somebody talks to him in a certain way, or somebody brushes past them. Is he able to step back and say, "Okay, you can go," or is he going to make a big fuss about it? You know, see what I'm doing. You know, see the way I'm getting in front of me. No man, that can't happen. You know, I'm gonna do something about that. If him thinks him can disrespect I and I, no one now can disrespect I and I, you know. Oh dear. And what are his views on women, on religion, on gay, on disability, and those kind of things? What are his views on politics? Do they align with your views? And what's his social manners like? I mean, there's nothing worse when you go out with somebody and they don't have no social manners and they go on, them eat horribly, or they slurp their soup, and make sure you take him out in private first before you take him out in public. That's all I say. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.